Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. A repeating story that we've heard with this Liberal government over the past 10 years is that they plan on doing something, but it never actually happens. This is the case with housing, and it's also the case with border security. So, ever since Donald Trump threatened to put tariffs on Canada if we didn't actually tighten up security on the border, Canada has released plans to do something about it. And then we didn't actually do it. Not only is this a national security threat to Canada to not have our border properly secured, but it's also going to have a lot of implications on whether or not we can sign a trade deal with the United States. Because whether we are just trying to sign a trade deal to get the tariffs to go away on non USMCA compliant goods, or we are renegotiating USMCA entirely, this is going to be constantly brought up in negotiations that while we said we were going to secure the border, we have literally not done anything to do it. And then you will have people in the United States, like FBI Director Kash Patel, saying that Canada has become a new terror threat to the United States, which doesn't look very good at the same time that we are dragging our feet to even put one extra officer on the border. Here is FBI Director Kash Patel talking about this.
Our northern border. It's largely expansive. The enemy has adapted, and we need more focus on the northern border to stop known or suspected terrorists from coming in from places like China, Russia, the Middle East, Africa, Afghanistan.
And what can you tell us about the remaining threat posed by potential terrorist cells here in the United States?
The terrorist threat that continues to be posed by international terrorists here in the United States is one of my highest priorities. We are working through our intelligence community partners to identify those individuals, and we've taken down numerous individuals in numerous rings across this country to neutralize that terrorist threat.
He moves on from Canada there, and I looked up all the numbers on terrorist apprehensions on the border between the southern border of the United States with Mexico and the northern border with Canada. Now, naturally, in terms of just general security threat, obviously the US has a bigger threat coming from Mexico because of cartels, illegal immigrants. You get a lot of stuff, drugs, all that stuff is coming over the border. There's a lot of human trafficking that goes on. Whereas that's not really the case with the northern border with Canada. But the problem in Canada is that we are so lax when it comes to people who are obviously terrorists, whether they're Khalistani terrorists, Tamil Tigers, they're ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah. The thing is that we don't crack down pretty much on anyone currently operating on our side of the border, which means that we basically just hope that the American border security finds them if they attempt to even go through a legal port of entry from Canada to the US. And then you have to also consider the fact that along the undefended parts of the border, if you think that you're going to get caught if you go through a legal port of entry, just walk through the rural Manitoba over the border into the Dakotas, and who's going to find you? That's the current problem that we have on the border, is that there's no real reason that to get caught as a terrorist coming from Canada to the United States. It's just too easy to get over the border. The Canadian government does so little when it comes to security that even if you go through a legal port of entry, we don't track terrorists, we don't collect data on them. So we just hope that the Americans won't be surprised when a guy tries to go through who has a Canadian passport and seems like a Canadian citizen, but they know potentially him as a terrorist from Afghanistan, who they had maybe even previously rejected coming into their country as a new green card holder or permanent resident. But now I want to jump over to something that has happened in our own parliament, and that is the Liberals being called out by a Conservative MP, Jacob Mantle, on the issue that they actually haven't hired a single new border security agent since they've been promising to get tough on the border.
Prime Minister was in Mexico this week, and when Mexico decided to get serious about its border, it deployed 10,000 new personnel in a matter of days. At the same time, the Prime Minister promised Canadians that he would hire 1,000 new border officers. So a very simple question to the Minister of Public Safety. How many officers have been hired and are deployed today?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
They're never actually going to let the Minister of Public Safety answer a question. Gary Amasangari doesn't exactly also have a good reputation on terrorism, since his name was on a list of contacts within the Tamil Tigers in Ontario. The Tamil Tigers being a Sri Lankan terrorist organization. So yeah, let's let the parliamentary secretary handle this one.
Mr. Speaker, we are hiring 1,000 new officers for CBSA and new RCMP officers. We are going to see a drastic decrease in illegal firearms and fentanyl exports, and we will soon have all the necessary personnel to complete this work.
So they didn't do it. You can't just recommit the same promise and act like that's an answer to failing to actually do, fulfill the promise.
For York Durham.
Mr. Speaker, in all that, I didn't hear a number, but let me give him the number because the information disclosed to this House by the Canada Border Services Agency says that the Liberals have hired 0 new officers. And it gets worse. It's worse. Not only have they not hired any officers, they don't even have a plan to hire any officers. So my question again is, when will they hire the border officers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, not only are we hiring more than 1,000 officers,
When? You can say you're going to do it, but like goodness, you actually have to have a date. If anything, if they actually came out of this and say, okay, we're going to start hiring in 2 months. It's like, okay, at least there's a date you can hold them to. At least they're maybe now under pressure to actually do it. But when you never actually commit to anything, when you there's never actually a date that you have to fulfill something by. You don't even have to make an excuse for why you're late. You never technically promised to do it anytime specific.
we're also adding helicopters, drone, and other equipment. We're taking action and making more arrests and finding more drugs. So it is working, Mr. Speaker. And in 2 weeks, and we will see.
The translation's really undermining just how much he's like freaking out here. He looks like he's supposed to be like a mad scientist, but he somehow ended up as a parliamentary secretary to a terrorist public safety minister.
A graduation of new officers that will be helping out CBSA.
Oh, and notice also that there's no drones. We haven't bought any drones yet. So even his like counter proposal that we may have not gotten any new officers yet, but we're gonna have drones. I'm like, we're gonna have? You mean we don't have it? Like this Liberal government will pat themselves on the back for anything, including nothing. Like right there, they haven't done anything, and they are patting themselves on the back. I have the same capacity right now to announce stuff like this guy did. Guys, we're not only going to have 1,000 new CBSA officers, we're also going to have them all riding in tanks. We're going to refurbish World War II tanks, and each guy's going to get one. And I know this because we're doing it. When? I don't know, but we're going to do it. But I also want to highlight something else that happened yesterday because this was quite funny. Shout out to Ryan Garrettson on X for finding this one out. I'm just using the reporting of it by Brian Passfume. So the Liberals are literally so fake with everything they do. When they did a housing announcement, they couldn't, at least in their local area, they couldn't actually find a new housing development. And so they had to fake one. Brian Passfume here says, as per my convo this morning with Ben Mulrooney and Greg Brady radio show, I took the news cycle to the site of the PM's house announcement last week. The construction was all just a backdrop. Today, there's just an excavator and a bulldozer during the site. And they verified this. This is the exact same site. They showed that it was from however they were able to do this. This is literally not a real site. They put this up so that Mark Carney could stand in front of anything looking like it was being built while he was announcing his Build Canada Strong initiative. As people have pointed out, no house would install actual glass windows before you would even put the roof in. And again, this thing doesn't actually exist. They said this is Brian Passfume. This is the photo from the next day of the exact same site. This is what it had looked like, but they had just dressed it up the previous day for the actual announcement. This is not the same site. This is a bit of an off-center photo. You can see the power lines in a slightly different position, but this is not an actual thing. because they're bad at stuff. That's really the only takeaway here. They're not very good at things. And so they couldn't actually have any big building going on because there isn't a lot of building going on in Canada compared to what we've been having over the last few years. In fact, new housing starts have been going down, I believe now for the fourth or fifth year in a row, despite all the initiatives. We had the new the START program, what was it, the Housing Accelerator that Justin Trudeau had brought out, and now Mark Carney has his new modular home program, which is, oddly enough, something that Brookfield Asset Management's invested in, but whatever. What's a little bit of government corruption between friends? And then also, like, when you actually look at the modular housing that, like, Tim Houston had been rolling out, I'm like, oh my goodness, I hope that's not what Mark Carney's talking about. It looks like you're going to have to live in a carnival concession stand. But yeah, it's these guys can't get anything done. Even with the gun ban, I don't even support the gun ban. It's stupid. But I believe they've spent like $500 million, if not $1 billion so far, sitting around in a newly created bureaucracy talking about how they're going to ban guns. I hope they don't ban a single one and they don't actually do any buyback. They don't actually confiscate a single gun. But my goodness, I thought these guys were supposed to at least try to do it. These guys aren't even like good at being threatening. I feel like we're never actually going to hit that 1984 moment in Canada because the government will just forget to do it. Like we live in just like an incompetent, semi-authoritarian government. We're not quite there yet, but that's kind of what we're moving to. An incompetent authoritarian government. We're never going to quite again get to like the professionalized authoritarianism of the book 1984 or other sort of dystopian futures because Mark Carney would just forget to do it. It sucks to live in Canada and he'd make everything very unrestrictive and not very free, but you never really get to the jackboots point. Someone would forget to put them on. We live in very much a sneakers authoritarian government, like sweatpants, sneakers, and like a stained wife beater. That's kind of what Canada feels like. But anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys later next time. I'll see you guys later and next time.